All right, hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and today is your Monday recap. It is April 9th, and kind of a similar pattern to what we've seen. Maybe not exactly the same, every day's a little bit different, but there's definitely some similar themes going on in the market. We can, feel like it's almost. So, what's my analogy for the day? Probably Chevy Chase going around the circle on European vacation, saying, "Hey, he just can't get right," or what is it? He just can't get left. The market just can't get over the 20-day moving average. It keeps running into a little bit of resistance, and there's heavy sellers that are coming into the market. We continue to be more in a distribution market where there are bigger sellers that are coming in whenever we get a bounce in the market. Last week we had a couple days of this, ran into resistance and sold off. We're also dealing with headlines. There was a headline today about Trump's lawyer or ex-lawyer, the FBI coming in and raiding his office. So that headline came out probably right about here. So maybe that was leaked out to somebody earlier. Who knows? You don't really know. But we were strong all day long till about 1:30. You have this little reversal bar here, and that was it. We just kept on breaking one thing after another. So I put together a very long weekend video. If you didn't get a chance to take a look at that, I talked a lot about fund flows and cash balances going up. So clearly, I mean, these are things that we know, right? We know that there is money that's just been coming out of the market. We know that they've been going into short-term treasury funds. Again, all this is in the weekend video. I'm not going to rehash all that. I'm not going to go over all the charts that I showed you and so forth. But if you didn't get a chance to view that, you could go into details about that and some of the stocks that I was watching, which was Alcoa, which was one of them, which did very well today. But right now, so the best I could try to tell you is what I'm doing. I did very little. I really didn't trade much today because buying into strength has been just an area that has not been good over the last few weeks. So I took some profits in some smaller trades that I had on. I was playing with a couple a couple small biotech names that did pretty well. Again, not even big trades because I just don't think it's smart to put on a lot of risk. Even into the big red days, we just don't know. We're sitting right at the 200-day moving average. A little bit more of selling, and we could get tipped over pretty easily. But again, you could see going back to the 5-minute bar. And you could look at this in Qs or you could look at this in anything. But clearly, I mean, look at the volume just in S&P futures that are trading. I mean, this does not happen unless there's some big sellers out there. And we saw this on Friday too. It's the same thing. So you just have to be very careful. I don't know how many times more I could really say it. I'm trying to very much practice what I preach, and I just didn't add, I added one trade today that was in Raytheon, which I thought was a good defensive trade in case something goes on with Syria. I put on a call spread, and I did that in small size for Raytheon. And that's it. There's really no point I see in adding risk until we know that the big sellers are done in this market. You can't really predict when that's going to be. So the best days have come is when you buy the lows on the day, and then take off in the first half. Take that risk off in the first half of the day. And if you're not willing to do that, which again I talked about in the weekend video, then you just kind of sit on your hands a little bit, because seeing the P&L swings, you could even you get up for for a bathroom break or go get lunch, and your P&L is like on the other side if you've got some long positions on. So that's all that I could say. And the option activity is. Again, I'm going over a lot of what I talked about in the weekend video, but the option activity is secondary to this. It really doesn't matter, in my opinion. The little bit of call buying that we are seeing, in some individual names, it looks like some buyers are coming back into Alibaba. There was a nice buyer in biotech today, which was the best performing group, and XBI was holding up really well up until that last half hour of the day. Really nice performance in the biotechs, but when everything, you could tell clearly that everything gets sold. Um, it's not just like one. It's not even just like technology. It's just everything. So you could see biotech again has been flirting with trying to turn the corner, and it just can't do it. So again, you could come up with your own causes for this, and we could call it a headline-driven market, and so on and so forth. But clearly, more importantly, there are some really big sellers that are taking advantage of any type of bounce and just selling into it. Um, a couple energy trades were interesting too. COP was a nice looking trade. There was a couple smaller. I think there was a Whiting trade as well. So I will continue to think, and I was joking around a little bit because there was about 5 charts that I was going to send out today. A lot in the enterprise application software, the smaller tech names. Some of them are starting to look like they're starting to turn the corner, and and that was midday, and now not so much. Even Apple, was looking like it was trying to reclaim these two short-term moving averages, and it did not close above the 50 or not. It did not close above the 20. So what can you say about this? Nothing really, nothing new from Friday, and you just have to say, hey, we're still in this correction territory. You don't know how long it's going to last. Hopefully, we are getting closer to the end of the distribution of the sellers, the big institutional sellers that are coming in, but you just don't know. It could also be, this is something that I saw earlier, which I just feel like I have a hunch that this has been going on. I mean, notice that Japan sold a near record amount of treasuries in February, according to data released today. Who knows if if it's Japan or if it's another country that is also reducing exposure to U.S. equities as well. What I could tell you, and there was a good question in the trading room earlier. Well, wouldn't there be a lot more volume? I think there is. I mean, you look at the volume in SPY that's been happening here since the end of January, and I mean comparatively to when this was going on back here. Look at how much more volume is being traded on a daily basis in SPY. And again, this is the outflows. This is pure money, that you could see. This is not some indicator. This is SPY, fund flows, right? So money is being taken out, just like it was, in the beginning, going back to, after the election, going back to, 2016 and all of 2017, there was a lot, every day I put out a report that Tribeca Trade Group members get on the weekends, as well as I tweet it out every day what the fund flows are, because it really gives you a sense of whether there's buyers in this market or sellers, on the institutional side, right? And I've been detailing week over week that there's been selling going on, and just like going back to the beginning of 2017, every week in that report there was billions of dollars of inflows. So it was being our market was in the phase of accumulation for the most part of 2017. I mean, literally every week there was equity inflows going into the major indices as well as going into sectors. Now we're we're seeing the opposite. So again, I'll kind of leave the video here for the day, but you have to just wait until whoever the big sellers are, whether they're countries, whether they're big hedge funds, whether they're whoever, you have to wait basically until those big guys are done, and then we could kind of look for, nice, trades in individual names. And I was talking about how it's been more of an index market. Same thing. It's just another way of kind of saying the same thing. One or two names that I thought, like I said, were interesting were the buying in BABA. Also in this Chinese internet name, BZUN, probably one of the better looking. I also, what I tend to look for, just like I went over biotech, is I tend to look for the areas that are outperforming. Take a look at this BZUN. Again, very strong, right? Had good earnings, and it's been hanging out here around the highs. Notice where it closed, right at the top of value. I will show you. So, the valuers are continuing to give us good, good levels to watch. Take a look at RSX. I sent this chart out before. Probably, I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with how value areas work, as well as vergent point of controls work. So I'll just, I'll give a quick 30-second explanation. What the values are is where volume is occurring at price, not time, right? Time is on the bottom of the screen, and you can see volume here. But I want to know a lot of times where the heavy volume is coming at different prices. So here's a good example, right? Once you get outside of range, the price action likes to search out. It almost has a memory and likes to search out big areas of volume, especially when they have never been returned to. So this is a point of control. Again, that means the biggest volume in a given time period. So this level is from this price action. You can see all the volume here. And notice that volume has never gotten back to there until today. We basically went right there to that level. And we've done this before. You could see here. Now, it doesn't mean that we ultimately reverse. Usually the price seeks it out, sometimes spends a little bit of time there, and then reverses. So I'm not saying that that's definitely going to happen for RSX. Look at the volume, by the way. Huge volume in this ETF. But notice we gap right down to there, an area that saw a lot of volume. So it's this indicator is beautiful in terms of the levels and the areas that are sticky in terms of price action. All right, so I will leave it there today, and we'll do it all over tomorrow and just kind of see how it goes. Beginning of day, completely different than the end of the day. Have a great day, everybody, and see you tomorrow.